Sound, water, and fire damage, a dirty space, mold, and much, much more. If your home or business has an emergency, Rainbow Restoration can help revive your place again. I spoke with President Josh Miller as he shared tips on how to prepare for severe weather and how his team can help if there's damage. Josh, tell me, how can homes and business owners prepare their properties for severe weather? Because we get it a lot around here.
Yeah, it's something that unfortunately we're dealing with a lot more these days, Amy. So some of the simple things that I think come to mind are making sure that our gutters and downspouts are clear. We think about some of the tropical storms that are affecting the country right now. A lot of rain is going to be impacting a large area of the country, even your viewers. So making sure the gutters and the downspouts are clear, free of debris so they can flow freely. Make sure the downspouts are draining away from the home so that that doesn't affect the foundation. Another thing is, depending on the severe weather, if we're dealing with high winds, whether that's from a hurricane or a tornado or something like that, or a storm, make sure that all of the outdoor furniture is secured, preferably put away, but secured so that it doesn't damage the home or any of our neighbors' homes. And then as we get into things that are a little bit more involved, we want to look and make sure that all of our windows and doors have good weather sealing, weather stripping on them. That'll prevent moisture from coming into the home. Then also we can look and make sure that we caulk any openings that might need some maintenance or repair. And for more substantial things, maybe we know we have large projects like our basement or our foundation needs to be waterproofed, or maintenance is done. That's maybe something that we need to plan on for later this year or into the future. But really, it's all about just making sure that we control, number one, what's going on with the wind, and number two, then how do we control the water intrusion?
You know, even with best efforts, I'm sure there are a lot of mistakes people make. What are some of the most common ones?
Yeah, I think I know, I'll speak for myself, Amy, my personality. One of the most common things we think is that we have more time than we do, or we put off that preparation and maintenance thinking that, oh, I'll get to it tomorrow. And then when the storm comes, it's too late. So I think the most common mistake is not preparing or not having a plan. So that's the first one. The second one is thinking that, oh, it won't happen to me, or my house isn't suspect or prone to that. Another one that unfortunately I've seen over a number of decades in the restoration industry is not really checking our insurance policy. So we get renewals and we look at how much do I have to pay for the next year or the next every month, but we don't check to see actually what does the policy coverage or cover, excuse me, was there a change in my deductible? Was there a change in coverage? Were there any exclusions? So really that's one, be prepared. And the other one I would say is to make sure that we check our insurance policies.
I got bit by that one recently with hail damage to my house. You also talk about making an emergency plan. How do you tackle that emergency plan to make sure everybody stays safe?
Yeah, so we think about it, Amy, an emergency plan really is, the first thing is that we want to make the plan, but discuss that plan with everybody that's going to be involved in it or that it's going to affect. I know over the course of my life, a number of people say, hey, you have great ideas, Josh, you don't always communicate those as clearly to everybody that's going to be involved. And so I think of that now as we talk. I'll use myself as the bad example. But we want to make sure that when we have the plan, that we then go communicate that to everyone that's living with us or everyone that could be impacted by it. Make sure that they understand and ask for their feedback and their input on what they think about the plan. The next thing after that would be to do a couple of run-throughs to make sure that we understand how would that plan be implemented. Perhaps we have... think about a hurricane if we have to evacuate, or even a storm surge or flooding in the Midwest here. If we had to evacuate our home, do we have like a go bag, or do we have a kit that we're going to say, hey, we're going to take this with us, and it includes medicine, if we have any prescriptions, does it have plenty of water for everyone involved? We might need to make sure that we could live on our own for 3 to 5 days. So do we have proper food, non-perishable food, clothing? And the other part of the plan is letting others know, like at the end of this, how are we going to check in, or who are we going to check in with, so that everybody knows that we're safe and what the next step of the plan is.
That's so smart. Yeah, you got to be prepared for things like that. Now, are there specific maintenance tips or preparations we can do to minimize damage to home? You talked about making sure that the lawn furniture is down, but what else should we do?
Yeah, I think you mentioned it. My brother recently, unfortunately, was bit by that with hail damage where he lives. One of the things is just regularly walking our property and looking for anything that needs to be maintained. I think we get so used to pulling up to our homes as we come and go from work or from different recreational activities, and then things start to, that we need to address, they might start to blend in to the scenery, we might say. So having a very intentional purpose to walk around our house and make note of anything that needs to be addressed. So starting with the roof, and then I've already mentioned the windows and the doors. Take a look at our siding. A home really is designed to protect us from the elements. So we think about the primary element in a storm is either wind or rain. So have that list or get that list of maintenance items out. The next thing I would say is then try to schedule those. And if it's something that we can't do, then we want to call around and get some quotes or get someone out there to do it. The other one I think of too is I sit here looking out, working from home today. If any trees or limbs are overhanging our home, we want to make sure that we call a professional to get those cut back, or if there's something laying on our roof, get that off there. By all means, I highly encourage people that if you decide that you're going to tackle any of this on your own, which a lot of people do, please make sure that if you get on your roof that you have proper fall protection or we take the proper steps for safety. If we don't think we can handle it, call someone else. But really, Amy, it's just walking around and being very intentional about what do we see that needs to be addressed. And if we have any questions, find a professional to answer those questions sooner rather than later.
All right, grab those phones and scan the QR code on your screen. For more information about Rainbow Restoration, you can also follow them on social media, give them a call, or visit rainbowrestores.com.